So the record label told us, next time you make an album, make sure you don't put the word Nazi in the intro. Okay, we said, so we put it in the first verse, because that's a Terror Dominatus. So.
So, soon, new album, The Great War.
Yes.
What can your fans expect?
Heavy metal about war, I think that's a safe bet for all of you guys. On the other hand, it's not really a spoiler or giving anything away. I mean, I think I'm probably the worst person on the planet to tell people to buy our new album. It's amazing, because I've been with it, you know, both for the songwriting part, the pre-productions, the recording, mixing and everything. And it's not about this album, every album after we've made it, I hate it. You know, I'm not hated like that, but I'm tired of it, you know. It takes me a year or a year and a half to really get through it. But I have a good feeling about it. But it's not something I would put on and listen to, you know, because I've been hearing these songs so many times now. So it's already old news, if you will. But I'm really proud and pleased of the production. And I actually think that on the second song, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, that's the best guitar work and drum work we ever had on a SABATON song.
That's a big difference. Other bands would always say, other musicians about their latest record, that this is the best thing they've ever done. And like you say, ah.
I don't know. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's fucking good, and it's gonna be. But I don't know, and it's not up to me to say which is the best album. That's up to the listener. I mean, some people like, you know, Smoke on the Water. Some people like Deep Purple's later stuff. You never know.
So, would you say at this point you like some of your older albums more, like
No.
Victoria or Art of War or something like that?
No, not at all.
No.
I was saying that I totally understand that some people enjoy a certain era of a band. For me, I don't know which Sabaton favorite album would be, but I mean, I'm the worst guy to judge it. It's like choosing your favorite child. All we do is we raise them as good as we can, and then we hope they do well when we send them to college.
So how would you describe the evolution, like from earlier times or from the previous album to the new album?
Evolution is a good word, because that is pretty much what we're doing. Sabaton, we're not a revolutionary band at all. That, you know, you go from one album to the next and everything has changed. However, there's always been a certain evolution where things move on. It may be production-wise, songwriting-wise, or, you know, musicianship-wise. So if you listen to, let's say, do Fist for Fight or Metalizer, and then compare it to The Great War, then there's a huge difference. So, well, in a sense, I'm pretty damn curious to see what the fans have to say about it.
I think, after listening to it, that it's a bit heavier than The Last Stand. The Last Stand was a bit more, I wouldn't say soft, but you know...
Cheerful.
Yeah, exactly like that. And I think this is much more heavier now. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a sense, on The Last Stand, doing a Last Stand is a heroic act. Isn't it, you know? To decide no matter what, we're making our stand here, our lives be gone or not. And that, of course, would make the songwriting process both musically but also lyrically feel a bit more prouder, lighter, cheerful in a way, even if in many cases that meant total destruction and death. We don't want to be, you know, totally having our albums musically and lyrically disconnected. The Great War is a very dark period in our history, and I think that is very well reflected in the music. So it is absolutely a more sinister, darker album than The Last Stand.
You have a lot of new stories to tell on the new album. Tell us about one of your favorites, maybe.
So many to choose from. I would probably go with A Ghost in the Trenches. I think it's song number 8. Fantastic story of a native Canadian, or not even Canadian, because they wouldn't give the native population citizenship. And he decides to join up voluntarily and go over. And he turns out to be the most successful sniper in the First World War. Even, you know, sneaking into the enemy trenches at night, you know, stealing shit and stuff like that. so many things and so many legends about him. So Francis Pegamogabo, you should Google him and then try and find. Yeah, it's a very interesting episode on the Great War channel on YouTube. Check it out.
I personally really liked Seven Pillars of Wisdom. What can you tell us about the story of this song?
Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence. It's a cool movie, it's a cool story, but don't read the book Seven Pillars of Wisdom. I did. It's shit. It's his own book, and oh my god!
Everyone says it's great.
Yeah, those are the people who never read it. I swear to God. No, it is. Oh, the language he uses, it's horrible. But musically, it's one of my favorite tracks. It's very basic, classic hard-on, because look at the instrumentation, it is really basic. Background keyboards only, the rest is just Sabaton, and great guitar work, snappy drums as fuck, and just, good melodies, I like it.
It really reminded me of the Coat of Arms album, very classic Sabaton style, like Metal Ripper maybe, something like that.
Yeah, it's a no. I mean, in the beginning, the first track is not totally out there, but it's a little bit of a surprise. But then, as you say, on Seven Pillars of Wisdom, that's when you get, aha, this is Sabaton.
Yeah, you have a few very experimental tracks, almost like The Future of Warfare, Attack of the Dead Man. Those are pretty out there for Sabaton, I'd say. What can you tell us about this style?
Well, it's not like we went into this deciding to change in any way. The stories we tell affect the music and vice versa. And with the Future of Warfare, it's about the introduction of tanks into modern conflict. And it is the story is a bit industrialized and harder, more mechanical. So it's natural that, both arrangement-wise and lyrically and how we would perform it is a bit more mechanized, I'd say. I mean, listening to it, you can definitely hear it's Sabaton, but it's not Sabaton 101.
Yeah, I think it's always your voice. Your voice always gives it away.
It does, for good and bad.
Well, I think everyone would say it's good.
Trust me, I've heard people of very different opinions, but I'm happy anyway. That's cool. As long as people have an opinion, then I'm fine. If they don't have it, then fuck them.
You chose for now Fields of Verdun and The Red Baron as your singles. Why is that?
I don't know really. It's a matter of choosing once again between your favorite children, but. Seeing as, even though it's not a part of the album, we came out with Bismarck, which is sort of slow, pounding epic, and also a bit harking back to like Primo Victoria era, it feels like, Sabaton, in the vibe of it at least.
Yeah, it's a bit like Rise of Evil maybe.
Yeah, the earlier stuff, yeah. And then we wanted something up-tempo for the first single, that's why we went with Fields of Verdun, and it's also, at least in my mind, I mean, every country has its own history. For some people, this battle or this battle was the most important in the Great War. For some people, no battle in the Great War was important because they live in another part of the world who wasn't affected by it. So for the British, they would consider the Battle of the Somme the pivotal moment. But for the French, and for also us in Sweden, somehow Verdun really personifies the hell that was, the Western Front at that time. Disease, stalemate, artillery from everywhere, and we just thought, let's start off with something that represents at least the atmosphere of the album in a way, and I think it does it pretty good actually.
And what about the Red Baron?
I don't know why we chose that one, actually. I don't know why we liked it. Sometimes it's as easy as that.
Is it actually the band who chooses, or do you sit with the label guys and go over the songs?
That is basically the band. We've had discussions with the label sometimes. Final word is always ours. We have, however, because we are so close to it, this doesn't only apply to me. This applies to everyone in the band. Sometimes we're so close to it that we're thinking about these 4 songs should be among the singles maybe, which one should it be? And then we can ask, it could be the record label, it could be mom and dad, for fuck's sake, you know? It's not like a life and death decision. The album is coming out anyway, and everybody's gonna hear the songs. The life and death decisions is when you're deciding to remove something from the album, because that means it's not going out there.
So if it was only up to you, what's your favorite track on the album? Which would you choose as a single?
No, I would do Seven Pillars of Wisdom. I think it's a good song, and it represents Sabaton both now and in the past, and it's classic heavy metal. I want to drink beer and sing along when I hear it. And if I have that feeling, it can't be that bad, you know?
So I noticed, well, everyone noticed, since like 10 years, you haven't done any more of the fun songs at the end of the album. You know, you had Metal Machine, Metal Crew, Metal Ripper, and after this, sadly, nothing anymore. Do you?
No, because we were
doing it.
We were doing themed albums.
Yeah.
That is it. I mean, we had a gap also. We didn't do it in Art of War, even though we had it before, because that one was following that theme. I don't mind doing them. It's actually quite fun. Trust me, relaxing way to write music, because you're not thinking of it as, you know, it's not like they're not important, but you don't take them so seriously, which makes you go into the whole process with a different mindset, which is kind of liberating sometimes. But it's just that thing. It isn't the last stand. Maybe, come to think of it, maybe we could have made up a story about last stands, including, you know, whatever. But especially on an album like Carolus Rex, not really possible, you know. This one, it's, I mean, you know, you've heard it now. You know how the album ends.
Yeah, not in this case, maybe, not in this case. Yeah.
It would really destroy the atmosphere of the whole thing, you know. So, but trust me, I'm pretty sure we haven't done our last metal tribute song in our career. But if they're on a themed album like this, which is, I don't know, it's not really a concept, but stories all from World War I in, you know, not in chronological order, but it would fuck up the vibe totally in this case. So that's why we didn't have it this time, at least.
So I think when you released Carolus Rex, it was very well received with the Swedish version. Have you considered doing whole albums, or maybe just single songs in other languages that would fit the theme? Maybe trying some German songs, or more Swedish, French?
There aren't that many languages I could decently sing in. Actually, that's the problem. If it makes sense, we could probably do a song or an album in Swedish again if it was about Swedish history. We could do something in German, but I'm gonna need somebody to check my pronunciation, because I studied a bit German in school, and pronunciation-wise, your language is pretty fantastic, because in most cases you actually pronounce it, you know, as it's read somehow, you know. Not many languages are like that. You gotta learn that, okay, all S's at the end are silent, or, you know, if it's these combinations, then you don't hear them and stuff like that. And also, hearing German every day with German crew members, used to study it in school, even though I wasn't very good at it. German would be possible. I mean, we did one song, we did 40 to 1 in Polish, recorded it for a charity thing. That was so fucked up. I had no idea, you know, what I was singing. So it takes a certain level, I think. I mean, we covered Feuer frei by Rammstein, where I say Gluck instead of Glick. Stupid, because the dots weren't there on the print that I had over the U. But I don't think I would be very good at it, because even though I understand a little bit of German, and even if somebody could tell me or help me, how could I deliver emotionally without really understanding when am I delivering aggression or sadness or happiness, whichever emotion we're talking about. So it's not only about getting the words right, it's about getting them right with the right feeling as well. That's the trick, usually. That's why it took so short time to sing Carolus Rex in Swedish. I mean, I would consider myself at least decent at English, but still it was easier to do it in Swedish.
Are there any more topics you still want to discuss? Like now you had a lot of, well, concept albums. Is there anything that you still have coming up or you consider?
I mean, yeah, so many, man. Oh, we have always, when we go into the songwriting process, we have 2 or 3 ideas that we're aiming for. Usually it turns out to be one of them. Sometimes it just twists around last minute because the music isn't speaking the same language as those stories. But, well, I've said before, I mean, one day, it's not going to be the next album, it's a future project, and I'm not sure you can do it in one song, but you know, something like Alexander the Great, we can go anywhere in history. Napoleon is certainly an interesting person, but how, where and when, I have no idea, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot to choose from.
There is a lot to choose from, yes.
Yeah, but I think it would be interesting, like you could even go back about 2,000 years or something like that. Yeah.
Because it's cool, it's liberating, it's still history, but it's so far back in time that everybody's going to understand and accept that there is a certain amount of myth involved as well, which makes you a bit freer when you're writing the lyrics, which feels cool in a way.
Well, mostly you covered very recent war scenarios, but you wouldn't say it ever gets boring.
No, not really. I mean, I'm so much in love with the discovery phase. Reading about, I mean, I like all kinds of history, not only military history. But we can't sing about art history in Sabaton, right? That wouldn't work. So we decided to go with military history because all of the emotional, everything in the emotional spectrum that's in our music is already in military conflict. There's aggression, depression, sadness, all of that spectrum, and into happiness and pride, or power, whatever you could call it. And so they match together very well. Well, I'm so much in love with finding out about these stories. So I'm everywhere all the time, finding out about this battle, this discovery it could be, and whatever it is. And so I couldn't be bored when it's something I love finding out stuff and I'm still curious about. What would be boring is what I found out is when I did the mistake of doing research for a song long before we actually did the song. That was really hard because it felt like old news and I was not passionate about it. So, for example, when we did Stalingrad on Prima Victoria, I read the book by Anthony Beevor. Good book, by the way, but it's very detailed on, on that date this happened. And even though I was really into it, and I wouldn't say it's a bad book at all, great author, but that's a massive amount of information. I didn't even know where to begin, and I read that book 6 months or more before writing the lyrics. And when I came there, all of that, and looked at the book again, it felt like old news. I wasn't so passionate about it, but I was passionate then when I was reading that book. So that song kind of twisted itself onto something else. I managed to find a translation of a Soviet soldier's diary and use that as the basis for the lyrics of Stalingrad. Of course, it helped to have read that book because you have the setting and the facts. But then at that point already I realized that I can't do, massive research before, because it's so nice to be there and wow, this is amazing, and then get at it at the same time.
Have you considered writing lyrics about fictional wars?
We have, actually, but I don't think we're going to go there. Also, especially since, we're controversial enough as it is, singing about military conflicts from left and right, sometimes from what people would argue is the bad guy's point of view. In many cases, one country's hero can be the next country's villain. But in the end, it's stories and we're sticking to facts. And, in most places we tour, at least, they have freedom of speech. We don't have to explain it. This was the most interesting way to tell the story. Don't like it, don't listen. Easy as that. But for us to go into fictional, that would mean we would have to create a fictional war. And then we'd have to then decide that, maybe it was this nation who fired the first nuclear bomb, or whatever. Then we're talking even more controversial. Why would we, even though we wouldn't mean anything about it, we're bad with it. So we try and stick away from that. And also, I think genuinely that there are so many fantastic stories in our past that are being forgotten. So why the fuck should we make up new ones?
Did you ever get in trouble with any of your lyrics?
Lots of them. Primo Victoria was stopped for release in Germany. Yeah, it was blocked. It's just 1 week before the release that they approved it. Because of the word Nazi in the first song. We had to send the lyrics in to have them look at it. And then they of course realized that it's about D-Day. Okay, cool, then we can release it. So the record label told us, next time you make an album, make sure you don't put the word Nazi in the intro. Okay, we said, so we put it in the first verse, because that's a terror dominatus.
So have you ever expected to be this famous, or when did you realize that, well, there was kind of a breakthrough?
I'm still waiting. I don't know. I do realize, and I do remember when I realized that I was a professional musician and that I made a living out of playing heavy metal. And I think this is 2009, if I'm not mistaken. It could be 8, 9, 10. And I had already been doing nothing else than music. But however, you know, I was standing on stage in Athens, in Greece. A couple of hundred people there. And during, it must have been at least after the Art of War, but before Coat of Arms. Because I can remember a bit of the set list. But anyway, in the middle of a song, I froze up, and it was Ghost Division. And you know, everything went into slow motion. It's like, oh, here I am, Athens, fucking good crowd tonight, lovely. And then I haven't had any other job in like 2 years or 2.5. I guess that makes me a professional musician. I mean, being a professional musician means that you make your money from music. Not that you make lots of money from music. But that was my sole source of income. And I was standing there like, yeah, I can live with this. And then kept on playing.
What are some live songs that you still really enjoy playing? Like, I can imagine some songs you don't like as much anymore, but maybe some older songs that you still like even after all those years.
So many times I got the question, how tired are you of Primo Victoria? I'm like, not at all. But I'm not sure if, I mean, I'm not tired of it in any way. I'm not so sure I'm anticipating Primo Victoria because of the musical experience rather than the atmosphere. Because that's what's different for us every night. I mean, we play Primo Victoria, sure, but if we focus on playing Primo Victoria only and set our limits there, then the song is the same night after night after night. Some improvisation, something might happen, you know, physically, but that's a whole different ballgame. Us doing something different on stage, the crowd is going to be different, their reaction. And that's what makes it fun. Then there are a few songs, I would say, I don't hate it at all, and it's all right live, but if we're rehearsing, it wasn't long ago, we did, on a few shows, we played Panzer Battalion again. And when we were rehearsing that one, that was a bit painful because, oh, why the fuck did I put a third verse in there?
From the new album, which songs do you think you're going to play live?
That's up to the fans to decide. We're gonna start off with singles and see which one, what the reactions are. Absolutely. In the end, how good an album is only judged by how many songs from that album is still in the set list 2 albums later.